It's your inside pass to everything Saints football.
See you later, bye. Touchdown, Rashid Shaheed.
We'll take you to places most fans never go. To practice, to the sideline, to the locker room. Following every twist, turn, and touchdown of the Saints season.
That is going to be a touchdown. Taysom Hill. Taysom TD.
Welcome to Inside Black and Gold.
The end zone, and that is a touchdown for Chris Olave.
Now, here are your hosts, Steve Geller and Jeff Nowak.
Oh, baby!
Hey, y'all. Who dat? And what is up? I'm Jeff Nowak. This is Inside Black and Gold. The draft is over. It's over. It's finally over. We went from the number 9th pick to the number 253 pick. 9 total draft picks. That is quite a bit. It was a long weekend, but Steve Geller, Charlie Long, and myself got together on Sunday morning, as we do after every NFL draft, and spent 3 hours breaking down the 2025 class. We went through every pick, some more than others. Obviously, we're going to talk about the quarterback, Tyler Shough. We're going to talk about Kelvin Banks. We're going to talk about the 7 other guys that were brought in. First segment, we're going to lay all the picks out. I have some Shough takes I got to get out into the universe, so bear with me. Second segment, we're going to talk a lot about Kelvin Banks. We're going to hear from Kellen Moore why the Saints were drawn to Kelvin, the Texas offensive tackle, and a little bit more in that segment. Third segment, we're going to break down the UDFA class. When we went through it, the list had not been finalized. Later in the show, the list had been finalized. So we may talk about it in the abstract a little bit, but that list has been finalized. We'll also talk about Jonas Sanker at the back end of that segment because I'm really intrigued by Jonas Sanker. Final segment, we're going to talk about other draft classes. What were some of our favorite draft classes? Who won the draft? Who other than Mel Kiper, who had the biggest crash out? Stuff like that. Appreciate y'all for listening. Again, I'm Jeff Nowak. We're going to hit everything in this episode. We're going to come back later in the week with a more traditional episode, obviously breaking down the class, breaking down some tape, breaking down what we've seen watching these players. We'll have Archie Manning on WWL on Monday, so I'm really interested in what he has to say about Tyler Shough, guy who went to the Manning Passing Academy twice. But without further ado, let's get into the episode. Enjoy.
Gorgeous Sunday out there. Hope you are gearing up for also Jazz Fest, which I cannot wait for next weekend where I'll be taking part in. This weekend, though, gentlemen, it was all about the NFL draft. The Saints, I think to pretty much everyone's surprise, held on to all 9 selections.
We're talking about Draft Fest.
Right, exactly. Not Jazz Fest, the Draft
Was
Fest.
that better or worse than
Fest.
yesterday?
Draft Fest. Yeah, I was thinking about that overnight, and I was like, I can pull this off. I can get this done. It didn't work yesterday.
Improved.
I didn't get the
about
inflection
Jazz
right.
Fest?
We're talking about Draft Fest. Anyway, I'm sorry. What was your question, Steve?
9 picks in the draft, and they kept them all.
9 picks. Yeah, I think it kind of signals, I don't think it signals a complete shift in philosophy in terms of how you address the players, how you assess, okay, who do we want to bring in? What are our goals? What are our ideals for these players and what you're looking for? But I do think it's pretty telling of we have holes on our roster and we got to fill them. Now, what Mickey said and what you heard in the Sports Flash is they had trades that they were looking at. It just didn't develop. There just wasn't anything there.
Worth it for them, right.
And, I think it's a smart move. When you're in the situation the Saints are, when you are coming off of a 4th consecutive missed playoff season, you won 5 games last year. You are not a player or 2 away. You need to restock the deck. And, we'll go through the UDFAs that have been reported. We haven't gotten an official word yet.
Even busier after the draft, too.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, it's not a big class. And part of the reason is you drafted 7 players last year. You draft 9 players this year. There's only so much space for a UDFA, and because you draft a player, you take Fadil Diggs, and we should go through the list of the picks at some point pretty soon here. But you drafted Fadil Diggs at 254. I mean, he was probably your top priority in free agency or in undrafted free agency, right? So it's like that's kind of where you are. The thing is, when you make this many day 3 picks, I'm not Mike Detillier. I'm not going to tell you I
break
watched
down their games,
Fadil
right?
Diggs at Syracuse. I'm like, I know exactly who he is. It takes me a little while. So
in week 3 against so-and-so,
I try not to have a visceral reaction right away. And Because it's easy to sit there and be like, oh, I like this guy, I watched this guy, but they took that guy. Why? You know, and you kind of have to go into it with an open mind and understanding like they've been scouting these guys for a while.
Yeah.
They kind of probably know what they're talking about. So, you know, I'm interested to kind of get a closer look at a guy like Fadil Diggs, who started at Texas A&M, went to Syracuse, Moliki Matavao, who I talked to at the Senior Bowl. There's a lot to like, I think, about this class.
What I think, too, for me, guys, is like when you have a whole new regime coming in, you want as many of your guys as possible, too. So that made sense to 100%. Me.
Correct. And Jeff, you spoke with Matavao. I wanted to get your thoughts on him, you know, at the Senior Bowl. Mike kind of talked about him, that he's a big receiver more than like a blocking tight end. But in the 7th round, it's worth kind of a dart throw. It feels like you have a couple of those, though, with like Dallin Holker. So that's going to be some interesting camp battles to watch.
Yeah,
you guys starting with the 7th rounders first. We're going backwards.
Yeah, well, before we get into that, we're going to get into all of the picks. I don't want, you know, and so let's go through the list of picks first.
Sure. Just
to kind of get. So, Steve, do you want to kind of go through it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. Okay, so you want me to do it? I can do it off the top of my head. Okay, number 9 overall, Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle out of Texas, right? You know, I think a lot of people were looking for a more flashy name. Didn't get it either way.
But should be expected if you're a Saints fan. You know this team drafts trenches early on.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 17 times, shame on me, right? Number 40, quarterback Tyler Shough, out of Louisville. A lot of people want to say this was a reach. I disagree with that. I think this is the range he was always going to go in. He was my mock draft pick. I had the Saints trading up to 32 to take him. They stood pat. They got him. That's the range he was going to go in, right? Don't get fooled by your mock draft simulator. Like, the teams had higher grades on this guy than PFF maybe did. Anyway, going forward, number 71, Vernon Broughton, defensive tackle out of Texas. A guy that, again, people say is a reach. Saints had really good intel on him. Bo Davis was his coach in college, so you brought him in. Next pick, second pick of the 3rd round, you had Jonas, not Jonas.
Oh, no, sorry.
Jonas, Sanker, not Sankey, Sanker, safety out of Virginia, big-time tackler, super athlete, came up playing 8-man football. We need to talk to Scott Shanley about his time in 8-man football at some point. He calls it arena football without the arena. Kind of just a fascinating story, but, you know, an interesting piece. So that's the end of the day 2 picks. Fast forward to day 3. It's funny because we got a text on the Oakland Heart Jewelers Talking text line going into the draft. They were like, I like all these Texas picks. I would take them way sooner than anyone from Oklahoma. And it's almost like the Saints were listening and said, bet, because first pick in the 4th round, number 112 overall, Danny Stutsman. You know, he might sound like a car insurance salesman, but he does make tackles, man. 100 tackles each of the last 3 years, led the Big 12 in tackles in his sophomore season. So, hey, I like that pick. I like volume tacklers, and that's what you got with Jonas Sanker and Danny Stutsman. Fast forward, we're heading back to Kentucky, baby. The Fighting Jeff Duncans. The Saints at 131 overall take Quincy Riley, cornerback out of Louisville. Obviously a teammate of Tyler Shough in college. So you got 2 players out of Texas, 2 players out of Louisville. Whole heck ton of Senior Bowl guys. Then no picks in the 5th round. Fast forward all the way to 184. And this is where I thought, okay, maybe the Saints might try to package these picks, these late picks, and move up. Nope. They wait all the way to 184. And I would say steal running back Devin Neal out of Kansas at 184 overall. A guy who's had 16 touchdowns each of the last 2 seasons, is the career rushing leader at Kansas. Super productive. When we talked to him after the draft, he was elated to finally get out of Lawrence, Kansas. He grew up there. He stayed home, and he was like, get me out of here. So he's headed to New Orleans. I'm really intrigued by that pick. Then 2 picks in the 7th round. You waited a long time, 184 to 248, and you end up with, again, a guy I talked to at the Senior Bowl, 6'6", 250, major need. We talked at pick 200, and I was like, Moliki Matavao, at a tight end at a UCLA, that's my pick, and that's who they took at 248, one of my better draft calls. Anyway, so we'll talk more about him. And then 6 picks later, 3 picks before the end of the draft, 254, you take the edge rusher Fadil Diggs out of Syracuse, started his career at Texas A&M, transferred, and you had 9 picks, 9 different positions, 9 different needs. Check, 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 check. Put him on the board. Move on. That's your 2025 draft class. I haven't even turned my computer on.
Call class for Jeff. Just rattled that off. He's been doing a little studying.
Yeah, no, I mean, we were locked in.
I guess it helps when you're writing it all up, too.
Yeah,
You just kind of gets ingrained in there.
So where do y'all want to start? You know, I threw out the Moliki Matavao because you were at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, let's start at, why don't we talk about Matavao, because that's the only pick that we haven't really taken a lot of time on.
Him and Diggs. I mean, it's at the very back end of the draft, and
everybody was ready to go.
Well, quite literally, like the final 10 picks, you made 2 selections.
Yeah, it was funny because we didn't even get Diggs on the radio. We'll get him soon, but it was like, guys, I think we're done. I think we're ready. But you did get Matavao, and he's a really intelligent guy. He was actually teammates at the Senior Bowl with Tyler Shough, so there's some connection there. Like, they know each other. He had a lot of positive things to say. Everyone who's played with Tyler Shough, everyone who knows Tyler Shough has a lot of positive things to say about him. But, the reason I kind of honed in on him was, one, because when I talked to him at the Senior Bowl, I asked him what he wanted to do the most that week. And he's like, I want to work on run blocking. I want to put my hand in the dirt and block some nasty edge players. And that's what the Saints needed. They didn't need another, finesse, route running, move tight end. You got that. Juwan Johnson's that, right? Dallin Holker can be that. You got that. I needed kind of a big-bodied, hard-nosed blocking tight end. And while it might not be what he did in college, because college offenses don't necessarily prioritize the power run game, physically and mentally, and he's willing to do that and capable of doing that. And in the 7th round, I'm not looking for a plug-and-play day one starter. I'm looking for a guy with traits, and he's got the traits.
Yeah, it's always, as we mentioned, kind of the priority undrafted free agents. It's the guys that you just want to make sure you lock down before it gets to that process. But, yeah, I mean, how did he look as a blocker at the Senior Bowl, Jeff, in Mobile?
It's tough because we're looking at practice, and we're not seeing full contact. So it's tough to say, like, blocking is one of those things that's like it's all about effort.
Yeah.
And until you see it in action, it's tough. But, I mean, like, you see him out there, and he looks the part. Right now, where I have some concerns is he's a little stiff, right? Getting downfield. He's got good straight line speed, but he doesn't get in and out of breaks very well. Like, I don't think he's going to be. He reminds me of Davis Allen out of Clemson, in that similar vein. I don't expect him to be a very big impact in the passing game. Maybe over time he could develop. But no, I mean, it's like blocking is so much about want to, right? It's like how are you a good defender in basketball? It's not about skill set a lot of the time. It's about, are you willing to do it? Do you care? Are you willing to look bad? Especially at the tight end position, because you're going up against edge rushers that it's like Cam Jordan loves nothing more than when they ISO a tight end on him and he can make him look stupid. Like, that's what he loves to do. That's what edge rushers love to do. So in order to be a capable blocking tight end, you got to be willing to go out there and get made look stupid, but survive. Right? You don't have to win every block. You have to give the quarterback time. And I think, the willingness to do that. And like, I didn't lead him into that answer at all. I was expecting to be like, I'm looking forward to showing what I could do as a pass catcher, whatever. And he was just like, I want to block people. And I just appreciated that. And I'm sure like when he had conversation with the Saints, you got to a lot of that too.
I'm going to say I'm sure that's something that head coach Kellen Moore saw as well, and knows pretty well coming from an Eagle squad that was so dominant up front.
Right. I mean, that's what you're talking about. You're going to play a lot of 12 personnel. You need the pieces to do it. And this draft, more than anything else, it was, okay, we're adding, like you said, we're adding pieces. Like, we want this, we want this, we want this. We got a lot of wants. Let's go find them, and that's one of them. Looking at things, was there anybody that you guys wanted in this draft that kind of fell to the side and we weren't able to get to? I was upset, not upset, but it was definitely disappointing in the fact that Cam Scatterbu ends up going to the New York Giants.
No, that's a good one. And like Dylan Sampson as well. Those were the running backs that we talked about, like leading into day 3, that they needed to address the running back position. And they eventually did with Devin Neal.
Right.
Which, by the way, as
I'm
you
not
mentioned,
hating that pick either, right?
Production. Yeah. Like when you talk about potential versus production, Devin Neal had all of the production in the world at Kansas. He was fantastic there for multiple years. And you get him in the 6th round. And I think that's kind of a testament to this running back class that someone like Devin Neal that put up those types of numbers in college was just sitting there in round 6. Like the run on running backs still happened on day 3. A bunch of them went, but you were still able to get a good value pick at pick 184.
Well, that was like when we talked to Joel Thomas prior to the draft, one of the things he said was like this draft class, like 2017 is like the premier draft class. And when you're talking about what's the best running back class you can remember, it was 2017 when like a guy like Chris Carson was going in the 7th round, right? A guy who had not a long career, but a really productive career for the Seahawks. Like that's a 7th round pick in that draft. And he said like this class rivaled that class.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting a guy like Devin Neal in the 6th round. Like you might not, okay, Quinshon Judkins goes off the board early. Trevion Henderson goes off the board early. Obviously, Aston Genty. But like these guys you're seeing in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, these are good running backs.
And I think the NFL knew that. And that's why outside of Amarian Hampton and Ashton Genty that went on day one, there was just 4 running backs that went on day 2. And then you get to day 3, and you have all these guys fly off the board starting in the 4th round, and the Saints were still able to get a good one in round 6.
That's something that when you listen to all the draft analysts coming into, the event, I just remember NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah on one of his phone calls saying this is definitely one of those years that he'd much rather have a stockpile of those 2nd and 3rd rounders because of the all-around depth in this draft that there was at certain positions.
Yeah, and
especially the D-line and, like you said, running backs.
Yeah, defensive interior specifically, but also a really good edge rusher class. And some edge rushers that kind of fell into day 2, to your point, that, like, for instance, and I know this is more of a character thing, but, like, Mike Green going, 59 to the Ravens?
Yeah, that makes me sick.
And you're just thinking, of course, like, the Ravens, after having – Malachi Starks fall to them at pick 27 in the first round, where he's going to be a stud pro. In the 2nd round, they just get a first-round prospect fall to him close to pick 60.
How do good teams stay good?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's tough because it's like, it's really when you say, okay, who didn't they take that I wanted them to take? It's always like, who was on the board when you picked?
Yeah.
And really, outside of the 2nd round, I kind of feel like, it's all about, okay, how do you feel about this player? Like Vernon Broughton was probably a little bit of a reach, but it's a need, right? And you're not going to find a stud defensive tackle on day 3 of the draft. You're just not. Like, you'll find some guys with some traits you like, but you're not finding a plug-and-play starter. So if they feel like they have a guy who can contribute right away, that makes sense. But no, when Tyler Shough went off the board, even though he was my mock draft pick, in my most recent mock, like I was on him the entire time. Like I never stopped saying his name. I said Tyler Shough to you too many times, objectively too many times. But even then, it was like, oh man, Will Johnson's on the board, Mason Taylor's on the board, Trey Amos is on the board. Like there's a lot of names at that number 40 pick. So I understand why people got kind of annoyed. But if you think he's the guy, and I think they do think he's the guy, I think Kellen Moore thinks he's the guy.
They didn't want to risk losing him to another team.
You go get him, and that's what they did. So you can quibble with the value on a lot of these picks, but I'm okay with it.
Seeing from 0698, guys. Love hearing football on Sunday morning. Which 3 players are you guys most excited about? And who do you think actually plays or starts game 1? And I think one of those guys for me that I think is going to be that day 1 starter is going to be your first-round pick in Kelvin Banks Jr. at number 9 overall.
Well, he better be.
Exactly.
Are we going to have that conversation now about where he's going to play? I think it's a really interesting question.
Well, do we have the bite from Kellen or hold on? I have the bite.
Well, let's answer the guy's question as well. 3 most exciting prospects. I like Vernon Broughton a lot. Him and Alfred Collins, as Mike D mentioned, were a legit stone wall on the interior of the Texas defensive line. So I'm going with both the Texas picks here. Yeah. But you address the trenches with 2 really stout prospects. And then, the third one kind of up in the air. I would probably say Devin Neal just because of the amount of production that he had at Kansas.
I'm with John.
What is the question? Who's going to start?
No, who are your 3 favorite picks, basically?
Favorite picks. I feel like I'm in the minority, and it's like I like the quarterback.
Sure.
I do like the quarterback. Like I'm
excited about it too, just because I know it's Kelvin's guy. I mean, Kellen's guy.
I've been doing that all day. Kelvin and Kellen. Like they couldn't have made that
connection
more difficult. Anyway, no, I mean, like I think everyone gets excited about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward and whatever, and they people aren't talking about
well, not too
Tyler
many
Shough.
Folks are excited about Shedeur.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other conversation. We talked about that yesterday. We should talk about it again. Mel Kiper just had a meltdown.
And I saw you on Twitter too. Our boy Scott Shanley has been going off on folks.
Scott Shanley
laying the wood,
catching bodies lately, and I'm all about it. He's coming from the top rope on
like
people.
You mentioned to me in a text. It started like he slammed Derek Carr and has been on.
And he was like, "I like this. I'm gonna go. I'm good at anyway." But no, I mean, like I think people didn't talk about Tyler Shough enough, so everyone's like, "Oh, they just took this guy that no one cares about." But like,
I think the biggest knock is he's an older prospect, and people have a problem with that.
Yeah, and the funniest thing is I had this like Falcons tool coming at me like, "Oh man, he's so old," and I was like,
"What are you talking?"
Michael Penix is going to be 25 in like 2 weeks. Like seriously, these guys are both going to be 25 in 2 weeks. He turns 25 on May 8th, and you're telling me now you're like, "Oh, he's Brandon Whedon 2.0." Brandon Whedon was 29. That's different.
Right. When was 25 old? Man, like, oh, man.
God. Like, you're telling me that, oh, well, because Michael Penix came in the league at 24 and this guy's coming to the league at 25, it's a completely different situation. Michael Penix doesn't have any ACLs. Anyway, I was just so annoyed. I was like,
man, you've had a lot of coffee this morning.
Well, no, it's just like, guys, like, at least be consistent. Like, if you're not going to care about the age of Michael Penix, don't act like the age of Tyler Shough is a major issue. He played one more year in college. They are the same age.
All right. So it's just stupid. It's like, okay, is the agent issue? The team doesn't think so. The player doesn't think so. I mean, I personally don't think so, because if he's going to play, he's going to play. And if he's good, it doesn't matter if he's a little older than a rookie. Jaden Daniels came to the league at 24. Spencer Rattler was 24. We don't talk about how old he was. Everyone's like, I just think it's such an overblown issue that misses the point of, like, is he a good quarterback? Can he throw? Can he make the throws? All I see is that one clip where he kind of, it looked like he
over and over.
It looked like, I don't know what happened, but he was rolling out and it kind of slipped out of his hand and he kind of just chucked it. And then there's the clip at the combine.
That's the one I thought you were talking about.
It looks like the ball slipped out of his hand and he made a weird throw. And they ignore the fact
this is your quarterback.
They ignore the fact that, like, he had the best workout of any quarterback at the combine. So no, I mean, I
definitely
think
wasn't sure.
There's a lot of misinformation about, like, how the quality of his quarterback play, but I just think if you're listening to people who understand the quarterback position, they have a lot of positive things to say. I mean, I compare him to Jared Goff. People are like, I can't believe you compare him to Jared Goff. That's who you want. I'm like, have you watched Jared Goff? Yes. I want the four-time Pro Bowler who was second in passing last year, was fifth in the MVP voting. You're telling me that would be a bad thing? Anyway, I just think people aren't excited about Tyler Shough because he's not the sexy name. He's not whatever. Like, oh, they reached for him, whatever. I think he's going to be a good quarterback, and you're in the business of collecting good quarterbacks. So we'll see. I know that wasn't really the question.
The biggest legitimate knock against Shough, I think, is just his injury history.
Yeah, and again, like, okay, well, we're worried about the injuries with him, but we're not worried about the injuries with Penix, the guy who had two ACL injuries.
That's even more significant. Ligaments, like,
right.
When you just have broken bones. That was the issue with Shough, is that freak kind of broken collarbones and then like a broken femur, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
It wasn't
fibula. And he got hip dropped. Right?
That's what it was.
And so it's like, okay, I mean, he doesn't have more breakable bones than anybody else. It's just bad luck.
Right.
But I mean, it is an injury history, and you have to look at it.
But it's not, multiple torn ACLs or torn Achilles or anything like that.
The bone heals, you're back. And one thing Jeff Brom said, we talked to Jeff Brom after the pick, and he was like, yeah, at Texas Tech, they were having him run QB power. He was taking hits. And sure, maybe he's not the most durable guy if you're asking to play like Taysom Hill, but I don't think the Saints are going to ask him to play like Taysom Hill. So, if their goal was to bring him in and run QB power, I don't think he's Jalen Hurts, right? But I don't think you're going to ask him to play that way. So I just think you look at a guy who has all the traits you want. He's 6'5". He's got a cannon arm. One of the things I really do appreciate, and I tweeted about this, is watch him navigate pressure. And now dealing with pressure is going to be an issue for him. But watch how he is able to slide away from pressure and always stay square down the field. Like you see guys scramble. And like think about when you watch a guy scramble, how long is it going to take him to set his shoulders, get the ball to a throwing position, and actually get it downfield? What he's able to do is just slide even against his arm, away from his arm, and always has his shoulders set so that he can get the ball out quick. And that quick release when you are extending is massive. It is the biggest difference between a big play or a big interception, a big turnover, a late ball over the middle of the field. And watching him adjust to that speed is going to be big. But that's the type of kind of quarterback play, subtle quarterback play that I think you're getting out of that guy that you might not be getting out of a 22-year-old quarterback, out of a 21-year-old quarterback, out of a guy that didn't spend 7 years in college. So I don't know. All that is to say, I like the quarterback. I do. And people are going to be like, oh, you're just being whatever, a shill for the team. And I'm like, I've been telling you I want this guy for weeks. So I'm not going to pretend I'm mad about it. Anyway, I don't know why I'm going off on a rant, but I am.
Jeff, you feeling it this morning?
No one's even talking to me and telling me I'm wrong. I'm just mad. I'm mad at the sky.
The Twitter sphere, right?
Twitter sphere is,
we're talking about Tyler Shough, though, that 40th overall pick for the Black and Gold. And during the Zoom call with the media, he was asked how much interaction did he have with the Saints?
Coach Tolzien came to my pro day, and we did a really extensive, board work. Went to go get lunch and dinner. We spent about the whole day together before pro day, and we connected really well. He watched pro day, obviously, so he got to see me work out. And then, shortly after then, I came in for a 30 visit and got to meet everybody. And it just had a great experience, man. The facilities there, the coaching, I met all day with them, and they had great feedback, great support. And but yeah, I really hadn't heard from him since then. And I was talking to my boy Ziad right after, and it was just like, man, I hope it works out as I was leaving at the airport. And luckily it worked out.
That was Tyler Shough talking to the media about his interaction with the Saints, and we kind of were, like I was mentioning, the biggest knock against him has been injuries. Hasn't been hamstring, hasn't been shoulder or any kind of soft tissue stuff. Yeah. It's been broken bones
and when
fractured bones.
When he got into the Louisville offense where he wasn't asked to scramble and run around as much, he stayed healthy. So and that's what Jeff said. We was like, what do you think the difference was and why he was able to stay healthy last year? It's because we didn't ask him to dive into, charging linebackers on every third play, right? And, I don't know. I like the dog, right? I'm a dog guy. Right. He's got a dog, and that's not a good reason to like a guy, but I don't know. I like the guy. And
we had puking babies and dogs headlining the Saints draft.
The first 2 picks, you got these viral moments. You got the puking baby, and then you got the dog who just had to be part of the celebration. They bought 32 bandanas for the dog.
Nice.
So they had every one just in case. And Tyler said that Murphy was the dog who's named after the character in Interstellar, which he said Murphy was the main character in Interstellar, which I think is kind of telling of him as a personality. Because it's like, that's a Matthew McConaughey movie. No. It's a Jessica Chastain movie. I'm sorry. Anyway, 3 people listening will appreciate that reference. But I just hope people can go into this offseason and root for the guy, because I think that he has a lot to like, and people are reacting to very little information because he wasn't talked about a lot, and I think it's a mistake.
We know about how injuries can mentally affect a guy as well. Shough talked about dealing with those.
For me, it's only made me stronger. I've had the bone breaks. It hasn't affected me physically, and it's strengthened me mentally. So, I feel so prepared to come into New Orleans and just go there and continue to learn, continue to grow and compete. And at this point, I'm ready for this opportunity and excited to get there.
Shough coming into an offense with a guy that's been a QB. There's plenty of QBs on this staff. Also, it's nice having a coach that just, hoisted the Lombardi trophy in the dome you're going to be calling your home. But Shough was asked about Kellen Moore and the rest of the Saints staff.
I mean, I think everywhere Coach Moore has been, it's been greatness from the quarterback position. I think he's a guru when it comes to that. And I'm just so excited to kind of continue to work with him. And that, I feel like this is the only team in the NFL where you got the QB coach, the OC, and the head coach, all quarterback guys. So just an incredible opportunity to come in and learn from them.
He mentioned it right there for me. Yeah, I think this is a dream scenario for a young quarterback, considering all the QBs you have in the Saints coaching room.
Yeah, and I've calmed down now. I've taken a few
Have another cookie.
Yeah. They're regular cookies. But no, I mean, I think the other thing I see a lot is, this is Mickey Loomis putting his thumb on the scale. And I don't know, I feel like people misunderstand Mickey Loomis's role. Like Mickey Loomis defers to the people he has assigned to be the experts in the room.
Yeah, Mickey's not in there banging the table, take this guy.
Yeah, it's like, I know all you guys want this guy, but I like that
this
guy.
Yeah.
We're taking that. That's just not how it goes. And I think he's the figurehead, so he gets all the blame. But like, when you're talking about this guy, if you think Kellen Moore is not a massive Tyler Shough fan, you're crazy.
It was his pick.
It's his guy. You are not bringing in Kellen Moore and saying, no, we're going to get you this
You
quarterback.
got to deal with Derek Carr, and here's this guy you drafted too.
No, so like, if you think that they are just like, he's okay, but we're going to take him because we're desperate. It's like, no, Kellen Moore, Scott Tolzien, Doug Nussmeier, all these former NFL quarterbacks, high-level quarterbacks, know what they're talking about when it comes to the quarterback position. They identified their guy, and it's him. So, I'm gonna say in Kellen we trust here, because I think he's a smart guy. I think his assessment is valuable here.
I love, too, on the Oakland Heart Jewelers talking text line, 0698 deferring to 2 quarterbacks we know here as well. The Cajun Cannon, he says, and Archie Manning are high on Shough. That's good enough for me. Who dat?
There you go. And Greg Cosell from NFL Films, a couple months ago in the pre-draft process.
Yeah, like February.
Yeah, literally months ago. We've talked to him before on the show, I think it was actually before last year's draft. I don't think we had him on before this year's draft. But you saw, his kind of comments on Tyler Shough where he mentions the mechanics are really clean for like a college prospect. And you kind of expect that from an older college prospect. But at the same time, someone that has, experience, he liked him. He liked the size, 6'5", 220 pounds. For the quarterback position, he said he looks the part, and he was his QB2 of this class. And Greg Cosell watches a lot of tape. He knows what he's talking about.
The other guy who was really high on Tyler Shough, and they kind of made fun of him about it during the broadcast, Louis Riddick, has been banging the Tyler Shough drum over and over again on every show. And I don't know, like, I like Louis Riddick. There's certain guys out there, there's certain analysts out there that I take a little more seriously than others. Like, I don't take Mel Kiper that seriously. He's kind of just the draft guy.
He made himself a clown with the
right.
stuff.
Whereas, but like Louis Riddick, it's like when he says something, like, I'm like, okay, I buy that. I think Schlereth is another guy. Like, when I ask him a question and he answers it, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, I get insight from that question. And so, like, listen to what Louis has to say about him, and then kind of make your own assessment.
One last thing about Tyler Shough, guys. He was asked also to describe his style of play at QB.
I think for me, I'm a high-level mental processor and have those, NFL traits and QB qualities, being a taller guy who can move and be an athletic and can make any type of throw. But I think for me, my biggest thing and where I've had success is being able to win pre-snap and make up for it post-snap if it's not the right look. And for me, I'm going to continue to try and play free and just go out there and continue to grow and continue to get better. And I think that, every year in my career, I feel like I've learned so much and gotten better. So that's my goal right now is to continue to climb.
Yeah, one thing with Shough now in the mix and another two young quarterbacks with Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener. It's going to be a fun competition to start watching unwind, start to get together, I say, not unwind, but get, going when we get into organized team activities. I mean, we're not going to see much for rookie minicamp out of anybody, but yeah, at least OTAs.
I expect you'll see Tyler.
But I feel like we don't usually get access to the practices just like the locker room.
We'll get one practice. We should get the locker room. But you're running kind of milquetoast. I don't even know if you're going to run any team sets.
Yeah, you're not going to see one practice with just not the rest of the team and be like, oh, my God, Pro Bowler, Tyler Shough.
But it will be the first time we get to see him throw right up close and get a good look at like what he actually looks like, the size. Like he's 6'5". Like he is the quarterback build you want. So we'll see. But yeah, that's going to come up in a couple weeks. But I agree with you. The competition, I think it's going to be a competition. I don't think they're just going to hand it to Joe. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold, a WWL Radio-fueled edition. Went through a lot about Tyler Shough in that last segment. This segment, we're going to be diving in on Kelvin Banks, get some insight on the player, the number 9 overall pick out of Texas. We're going to hear from head coach Kellen Moore, why the Saints landed on the offensive tackle, what was the philosophy there, and a lot more. Here you go.
Welcome back into our Draft Fest Sunday recap show. The Saints making 9 picks in the 2025 NFL Draft. 9 selections. Number 1 we'll get into now was an offensive lineman, gentlemen, and this is definitely a need for the team with offensive tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. I know there was some disappointment that you couldn't get your hands on maybe a Will Campbell, but I don't think that was ever really legitimately a possibility, considering all the talk leading into this draft was that Vrabel and the Patriots were in love with him.
I want to say it was Brett Coleman. I forget who on social media had posted it, but it's just like Mike Vrabel probably spent 5 minutes in a room with Will Campbell. Just
I'm sold.
This is my pick.
Yeah.
He is such a Vrabel guy. And I mean, his emotions after he got drafted and just hearing him talk, because I ended up doing the locals to the pros, and obviously Monroe, Louisiana native, former Neville Tiger, gets drafted 4th overall by the Patriots. And Vrabel, in this like kind of post day 1 presser, said this was, quote unquote, a very, very easy pick for us. They view him as a left tackle for all the analytics folks that think he can't play tackle. And we'll see how he does. And if he fails at tackle, he's going to be a legitimate guard at the NFL level. I think he'll be a good tackle, though. So it's a very safe pick. It was an easy pick via Mike Vrabel, and we're hoping for the best for Will Campbell.
Looking at the Saints pick, though, of Kelvin Banks Jr., it's really hard, I guess, to kind of break down offensive linemen as Joe Schmoes that we are, not really coaches or scouts.
Right.
Correct.
You
are correct.
You're looking at the film and it's like, all right, you think this guy's doing a good job.
And it's probably Saints bias in terms of like I see him play and I'm like, okay, Teron Armstead. Like he looks kind of like Teron Armstead the way he moves around. I mean, personality-wise, they're not that dissimilar. I just think that's and whether you want to compare their play styles, like Teron was always a guy that was very unique in how he executed his sets, and one of the reasons I think he fell in the draft is because he wasn't your prototypical kind of style left tackle. He kind of did things his own way. Kelvin, I think, is more traditional.
Yes.
But I just think that's what you're getting is a very high character, high caliber guy, not a ton of questions. Mickey Loomis came out and was like, yeah, we love Kelvin Banks. Like he has very few holes in his game. He said he had people texting him after they made the pick and was like, this is a great pick. And like, this is like the guy that you want to add to your roster. You know, it would have been fun for, I'm curious if they would have taken Tet McMillan if he had gotten 1 pick further. He went to the Panthers at number 8. I'm sure they had some, skill players that they were really high on in that spot. But I think when when you get to a point where there's not, the Aston Genty's off the board, like Tet McMillan's off the board. Some of these guys that feel like they could be game changers for you on offense are off the board.
Tyler Warren was
you
there.
Go back to...
Yeah, he was.
But he didn't even...
No, I know it wasn't the first tight end even
Colston
taken.
Loveland went ahead of him.
I was surprised by that one.
That was something that they had said in the pre-draft process, though, is that those two were really, really close. And some teams had them even flip-flop. But it was like 1A, 1B more than anything.
But the idea that they, it's like, they didn't take Tyler Warren. He didn't go for 4 more picks. So, I just think when you're talking about an offensive line prospect and you have a very, it's like Fuaga last year, like they didn't even have a ton of meetings with Fuaga. They didn't have questions. They felt very good about him as a player. And I feel like they felt the same way about Kelvin. So however you set this up, I would be surprised if you don't try to put Fuaga back at his more natural position at right tackle. But no, I mean, I think that's where you are is you want to add high floor players. And that's what you got. Like, I don't think that there are many questions about what Kelvin can do at the NFL level.
No, I agree. I think high floor is a great way to describe him. Now, the question becomes, where do you envision him right off the bat? Because he's starting day one. That's not a question. Left guard was the biggest hole on this offensive line from the get-go. I know that there were questions about Trevor Penning playing at right tackle. Taliese Fuaga was fantastic at left tackle in his rookie year, so do you take him and move him back over to right tackle where he played all in college? I think it would work out.
I think you probably do.
But at the same time, you're like moving a proven NFL left tackle, in my opinion. So you're either going to have Kelvin slot in at left guard right off the bat or play his natural position at left tackle and then move Tally back over to right tackle. I think it's an interesting conversation to have. I'm looking forward to seeing what the coaching staff does. In my opinion, I think that's probably what you do.
Here's the thing. If you're going to do it, I think you want to do it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you get halfway through the season and you're like, this isn't working out, like you don't want to do it then. If I'm changing his position, I want to do it while we're changing offenses and there's so many moving parts to begin with. That's where I land. But yeah, I think either way, you have your tackles of the future.
Agreed. You have your bookends. And so with Kelvin, 3-year starter at left tackle at Texas, very decorated, all SEC, unanimous, All-American. It's just high floor is one way of putting it. Safe is if you want one word for the 9th overall selection, safe for Kelvin Banks Jr.
I can't remember who it was, and Mickey kind of referenced this last week. It's like you're not trying to hit home runs. You'd love to hit home runs with every pick, but like I want to hit doubles. And worst case, I want to hit singles.
Yeah, that's the Ravens. I'll just take getting on base, baby.
Like I'm not striking out here, and you can play a little scared there. You're not going to hit a lot of home runs if you're not trying to hit home runs. But they're not in a position to swing for the fences. They're in a position to add quality players and
line drive down the middle here.
Right. I'm going the. It's like I could try to pull a home run over the left field wall, or I could go with the pitch and slap a double into right field, and I'm still moving things.
But real quick, want to get into some Kelvin Banks audio. His impressions from meeting with the Saints pre-draft.
At the Combine, man, it was definitely a good meeting for me. Went in, drew up some play schemes, but also just getting to see what type of organization they were and them getting to see what type of person I am. So we had a great meeting there. And then at Pro Day, Coach Nugent, he kind of ran a drill there too. And we kind of got to interact a little bit and like the football aspect of it. So it was definitely good communication there.
Talked about kind of a little bit about where we think Banks could end up lining up for this squad. And he was asked if he was talked to by the Saints staff on where he will be on the O-line.
I'm gonna play whatever, man. As long as I'm the best, if I'm the best 5 on the field and they give me the opportunity to go out there and start and I earn that right, then I'm gonna play wherever they put me at.
I think that's the big key. Best 5 on the field. That should be the Saints' philosophy, and believe it will be going forward. You're not just trying to fit somebody in there. Banks describes also his skill set, what he brings to this O-line.
I'll say I'm a smart player, smart, physical. Smart is fast thinking, but fast thinking, quick feet, things of that nature. So I'll say those are like some tangibles of where my game excels.
And Kellen Moore's first ever pick as the head coach of the Saints. Banks was asked his interactions with his new head coach.
At the Combine is when I really talked to him the most, and he's a great guy, man. He kind of lets his players be who they are. He wants to understand you. He wants to understand where you come from and things like that. So it was definitely a good meeting at the Combine with him, and he's a great guy.
Kelvin Banks Jr., Texas offensive tackle, now a member of the Black and Gold, and seeing the draft grades out there for the Saints' first-round pick, nothing below a C. I feel like it's been pretty average, maybe a B+ to A out there as well. I've seen for Kelvin Banks Jr. I love it. We talked about wanting to strengthen the trenches, offense, defense, and that fills one of those spots.
It's a big boy game.
I would have loved to see an edge rusher, but, it's like, you talk about Tyler Shough. People are concerned about Tyler Shough. The best way to make sure Tyler Shough has a chance?
Get him a wall.
Yeah.
Want to remind everybody of the Saints' 9 picks in this year's class. You had Kelvin Banks Jr., Tyler Shough, Vernon Broughton, Jonas Sanker, Danny Stutsman, Quincy Riley, Devin Neal, say it for me, Charlie.
Moliki Matavao.
Thank you. Moliki Matavao. And Fidel Diggs. I guess I look at that name with Moliki and it's just intimidating.
It's not too bad. Like
I don't want to get it wrong, too, and I start panicking.
I messed it up for the 6 o'clock news report yesterday, but then I just did it again, and I just got it. I'm like, oh, that's how you say it.
The Saints even sent out for us the proper pronunciation, and I'm still like, I just look at it.
You got to remember.
That first name just makes me freeze.
Jonas Sanker.
I know, I said Jonas.
Like Jonas Valanciunas. That's the easiest way to remember.
JV, I'll just
Matavao is actually pretty easy once you say it a few times.
Matavao.
It's kind of fun, actually.
Remember to go through it right.
It's not like Giannis, right?
That was like way back when the Saints had taken Haloi Kakaha. I know a lot of folks were intimidated by that, but after doing it so many times, I'm like, right. It looks a lot worse than just saying it, right?
Yeah, if I can learn how to say Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think I can handle this one.
Exactly.
We just went through those draft picks for the Saints on day 1 through 3 for the black and gold. Head coach Kellen Moore addressed the media on the first 2 nights of the draft. Here's what he had to say on drafting Kelvin Banks Jr.
He's everything you want your organization to represent. The player, the person, 3-year starter. She's just turning 21 here next month. You meet him, you quickly are gravitated to him as a person, and you put on the film, and he gets after people. He moves people in the run game. He's a great pass protector. He just does an excellent job.
We talked about the position versatility for Banks on the offensive line, and Moore was asked by the media how he feels about Banks possibly fitting in at that guard spot.
Certainly feel like he's got the flexibility to play anywhere on the offensive line as far as, the tackle spots, the guard spots, and we got other guys who are flexible too. I think, we feel really good about this, Got Trevor, we went and signed Dylan. We got a lot of depth in this group that allows us to have some flexibility there.
I did think it was interesting there when, asked about playing guard. He did bring up the name Trevor Penning there, possibly.
Yeah, Dylan Radins, who they picked up in the offseason, who,
you said Radins right.
Yes. Well, that was the one that was really weird.
No, it was a draft night. Mike Detillier, Bobby Aber were going back and forth on the last name.
Like Reduns or whatever? It's spelled like Reduns.
Right, but it's Radins, right?
Yeah, Radins. Anyways.
We'll say it a whole bunch of different times, too.
I'm going to stay out of this one.
The left guard competition is going to be a really interesting one because, depending on what they decide to do with Kelvin, if they keep him at left tackle and move Tally back to right tackle, his natural position that he played at Oregon State, like, who's going to be the left guard? Or Jeff, you had brought it up when we talked with you last week. Are they going to throw Penning at guard, or are they just going to keep him as a backup right tackle?
It's, I think people are underestimating that it's not as simple as just saying, go play guard now.
Yeah, jumping from position to position to position for 3 straight years.
Like, what if he's significantly worse at guard? Well, what if you can't play him at guard and your best 5? Again, it's about getting your best 5 on the field. What if Trevor is a better right tackle than he is a left guard, and Kelvin is a better left guard than he is a right tackle? And I think people are just assuming that's the only thing they can do is move Trevor to guard and move Tally to right tackle and Kelvin to left tackle. And here's the thing, Trevor's on the final year of his contract. So, it might be the best case scenario for this season to do that. And when you hear Kellen talk, the thing he says and the thing I believe him is what they like about this offensive line is they feel like they have options. And you went to the last few years and you felt like you were locked into man, I don't know, we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to do this. And this year, more than any other year really, you feel like you can do a lot of things. Now, what I will say is Kellen Moore is coming off a year with the Eagles that they went out and got a first-round pick of Mekhi Becton and said, we don't have a spot for you at tackle, but we can play you at guard. And they threw him at guard, and he played well, and he picked up a pretty decent contract from the Chargers, a 2-year, $20 million contract to play guard. So, it's worked for him before. So I wouldn't be surprising if that is a hope. But at the end of the day, no one in that Saints building has ever seen Trevor Penning play guard. He's never got reps at guard, right?
Correct.
He's never done it in his career. He's only played tackle. He had never played right tackle before last year. So, I don't know. We'll see. But at the end of the day...
That's like us saying, Jeff, you were our Saints sideline reporter. We're going to go have you do the sidelines for the World Cup match or something.
I thought you meant like do play-by-play or something like that.
Right, there you go. Just totally switching things up. Right, you're in the booth for Haas this week.
Yeah, it's a different position. It's a lot different than going from left to right because you're still playing the same position. You're just reversing everything. Your responsibilities are different. The calls are different. What you're trying to do is a lot different. You can be physical. You have to pull. When's the last time you saw Trevor pull across the line? Like, you didn't do that a lot. So, and he did it a little, but it's a big question mark. And so, I don't know. I think people are making it out a lot simpler than it's actually going to be.
Yeah, just plug them in there.
Yeah, let's change 2 positions from people who played last year. Anyway.
Kelvin Banks, Jr., the Saints, 9th overall selection in the NFL draft, 6'5", 315. What does Coach Kellen Moore, what was he impressed with Banks when looking at him?
Certainly when you combine the situation, he's a 3-year starter. He's really young. He's about ready to turn 21. For him to just hop in there and compete at that high of a level in arguably some of the toughest games in college football that you're going to play, it just shows the player and the person that he is.
Coach Kellen Moore talked about Moore Banks' resume and why he loves it.
The beauty of him going and playing 3 years at Texas, you go see him play some big-time opponents. And, there's a bunch of weeks where he's playing guys that, were drafted today and they'll be drafted tomorrow. And so when you go watch him play those games, you're seeing him play guys that are going to be playing on Sunday. And so a bunch of games come out. He's one of those guys when you play there, week in and week out, he's battling some of the best. And so it showed up consistently.
That is definitely one of the things I like about Kelvin is the competition he's
battle
playing.
Amen to that, right.
In 2 different conferences.
It's not like, well, it was at a lesser school, so.
Right, like even if it was like, oh, he's been in the SEC the last 2 years, you're like, yeah, okay, but he played the same offenses a few years in a row. Like he had to go from the Big Ten to the SEC. Like that's not easy.
Right.
Did y'all see the tweet? I think the Falcons put it out there, or maybe a Falcons account. Jalen Walker going against Kelvin Banks.
Yeah.
And Kelvin holds up for like a full 5 seconds, and Quinn Ewers is just a statue.
Like Jalen got the sack.
He got the sack.
Yeah.
But is it really a 1 rep?
I mean, Kelvin kind of put him into the dirt. And like, okay, Quinn, what are you doing back there? And maybe that was the rep that got Quinn Ewers all the way to the seventh round.
Yeah, 7th round dart throw for Miami.
Yeah.
I mean, Quinn Ewers. Talk about a weird.
Apparently, he was Michael Pratt. Apparently, that's how teams viewed him, as the same as Michael Pratt.
He comes in as like this supernova prospect,
he was a perfect prospect,
a perfect prospect,
like a 1,000.
And then he just has a kind of mediocre, middling collegiate career, and he declares for the draft anyways because Texas was just like, yeah, we're going to Arch next year. And like, we don't really want you back.
Yeah.
And so he declares for the draft instead of staying in college and trying to go to another school, and he gets picked in the 7th round.
Yeah, that was the post I saw was like, other than Shedeur Sanders, the biggest story is that Quinn Ewers should have gone into the transfer play.
Really, probably should have. But it was just kind of funny, like, the Falcons taking Jalen Walker, they're trying to get some ribs off on Kelvin Banks, and I think Kelvin won the rep. So it is what it is.
That's the weird thing, right?
The fun thing about watching Kelvin's tape, the level of competition. If you saw Steve Sarkisian's comments right after he got drafted,
glowing reviews.
The freshman year for Kelvin Banks, one of the first major matchups that he had was going against Alabama, Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, 2 first-round picks. And that's just an example. Like he's going
to play in the NFL.
Yeah, right. Edge rushers, NFL edge rushers that you see in the SEC. And Mike talked about this during the college football season every single week. Same thing with like Will Campbell, the left tackle for LSU. They were going against NFL defensive linemen. Every single SEC team had one, at least one, if not multiple. Like look at Mississippi State, Ole Miss, who had like 5 of them taken. So it's just an example, but Kelvin Banks battle tested.
Yeah,
right?
I've seen people say like, they did this with Trevor Penning. And no, I didn't. This isn't what they did with Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning won, first of all, was a 19th overall pick, which that's a way different
People said the
situation.
same thing about Penning when they took Fuaga. Like, he's a physical tackle. And like Fuaga worked out fine. I mean, Penning obviously hasn't really worked out, but like people were all worried about the Fuaga pick because they were like, it's Penning 2.0.
The issue for Penning was the transition to NFL competition.
Correct.
Right? And that's the biggest difference to me is like, I don't wonder how Kelvin's going to hold up against NFL competition because we've seen him do it for 3 years.
And then the poor thing with Penning, he dealt with foot injuries, and that's a nightmare for an offensive lineman.
Yeah, things just didn't go well, and I think pairing him with Doug Marrone was the worst possible developmental situation you could put him into.
Later, Doug.
He just was not there to develop a young player who needed someone to kind of handhold him a little bit, and that slowed his development down. I think, like you saw with John Benton last year, a guy who was a lot more prone to teaching and approached it more as a teacher than I think Doug did. And you saw him develop, and I think he still has ways to go, but I think the way I feel about Trevor Penning right now is a lot different than the way I felt about him last year. And, so he's a guy that's going to play somewhere, so we'll see. Either way, like, I think the most likely scenario, as we just to kind of put a pin on this, I do think the most likely scenario, you move Tally to right tackle, you put Kelvin Banks at left tackle, and you put Penning at left guard. But I think people are underplaying that's not the only way they can do it. It's not the only scenario that works.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's what Coach Kellen was basically saying. Like, they have options.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think that would be the best case scenario, is having Kelvin come in, be your left tackle, and moving Tally back to right tackle, and just knowing that you feel safe with both your bookends.
Coming back in on Inside Black and Gold, Jeff Nowak here. Gonna kick to another segment in this WWL Radio-fueled edition. Myself, Steve Geller, Charlie Long. We're gonna break down the UDFA class, the 11-person UDFA class, as it has now been confirmed by the team. A lot of intriguing names on there. We'll talk about who we think could make the biggest impact, what are the players we're most interested in watching, and a lot more. We'll also talk about a famous YouTuber. A famous YouTuber that you may have heard of, some car fellow. Anyway, we'll get into it. Who dat? Enjoy. Yeah, I'm interested to hear what Archie Manning has to say, because Tyler Shough went to the Manning Passing Academy twice. He actually said Archie texts him, regularly. So I'm sure he has some strong feelings about Tyler as a player.
Our encyclopedia of football, Mike Detillier, was able to just go scroll through his phone, found the picture at the Manning Passing Academy, was like, boom, here's Archie and Tyler Shough.
I did like the detail that he said that they always have the signs that say their name, and underneath in parentheses they had to spell it like SHUCK so he could get it. I was talking, one thing before we go to the UDFAs. Tyler was on the call with you guys, and he said that his name means like a little shaggy dog in Scottish. But when I looked it up, I think there's a few different meanings for the term Shough. And I don't blame him for going with the one he did, but I think that's an Irish settling.
With the spelling of H-O-U-G-H, or you're talking about S-H-U-C-K?
No, it's S-H-O-U-G-H. It just means, it's pronounced Shough, and there is one like a kind of Icelandic definition of that it's a little shaggy dog. And it's like, yeah, cool, that's cute. I'm a dog guy, it works. But if you Google it, there's also kind of a secondary definition that's Irish or Scottish, that is like a ditch filled with water. Like a water-filled ditch. It's like, yeah, okay.
A shuck.
A shuck. And which is if I asked you what do you think a shuck is? Like,
ditch.
A little ditch with water in it. Kind of sounds right. But I don't blame him for going with the dog. Right, I don't blame him for being like, yeah, it means a little shaggy dog. Oh, yeah, it means a little ditch with water. Yeah, I mean, one sounds better than the other. So I just found it interesting.
Yeah, you know my family.
Yeah, he said it. He told you guys at one point, he was like, maybe I'll just change it and spell it the way it sounds. Like, I'll stick with it. It's endearing.
Looking at, you mentioned the Saints undrafted free agents they've signed. You can check that out. Jeff's got them up at WWL.com, his UDFA free agent tracker. And we're a little bit busy. Right after the draft, these names started pouring out.
Yeah, so it's a smaller class than usual. The Saints have not sent out an official list yet. So a lot of these, some of them are confirmed, some of them are unconfirmed. It's 11 players right now that we know about. Usually it's around 16, 17. They came out a little slower than in the past. And I think part of that is, what are you typically doing when you're done with your draft picks? You're calling for UDFAs. Like, you're getting that list sorted out. Well, the Saints, up until the last 10 picks of the draft, had 2 picks to make. So I don't think they got as early a start on the UDFA market remember the year they drafted Adam Troutman. They traded the whole back half of their board. They spent all of day 3 working on UDFAs, and then we're like, you know what? Tommy Stevens, he wants to go to the Panthers, but we want him. So we're going to actually trade up and go get him. Anyway, so all that is to say there are 11 names on this list, but the names we have, so we're just going to run
I have
through.
One already just because of his nickname, quote unquote.
Moochie?
Yeah, Moochie.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was going to be Moochie. So we can start with Moochie. So we got Kelvonte Moochie Dixon. He's a wide receiver out of SMU. And, one thing Mickey Loomis said is, they were looking at wide receivers in the draft. It's not that they didn't want wide receivers. It's that, you're on the board, you see a guy, like, oh, we like that guy, and he's about 10 picks away, doesn't get to him. And then suddenly you're changing your strategy. They didn't trade forward. They didn't trade back. First time in 13 years they haven't done that. So, I think there's a wide receiver coming in. Whether, there's 2 in this class, but I think a guy like Keenan Allen suddenly becomes, now that you did not land a wide receiver in the draft, suddenly becomes a bigger option. And one of the things, like, I understand people, there's a lot of names, like Nick Nash was still on the board in the 7th round, but if you're drafting a wide receiver in the 7th round, it's like, okay, is he going to make your roster? Because these late round picks, you really need them to be special teams contributors. And wide receiver is a position that can be difficult to project to special teams because they are not a guy like, can they make a tackle? Maybe. You have a 6'5" wide receiver who can run down the field. Can he be a gunner? Can he be a jammer?
Right. If
Maybe.
he doesn't have the ball in his hands running it, how much use does he have to
And
give?
these were even the 7th round picks in the NFL were probably star receivers in college, didn't play special teams. So it can be tough to project. And I think that's why the Saints often don't go for these kind of interesting wide receiver names and they bring them in as UDFA. So, like you said, Moochie Dixon at SMU.
Moochie. Can't wait to hear how he got that nickname.
Yeah. Easton Kilty, offensive lineman out of Kansas State. Then you had Torricelli Simpkins, another interior offensive lineman out of South Carolina. Marcus Yarns, running back out of Delaware. He's an interesting one.
Okay.
Yeah, highly productive runner at Delaware. You don't get a lot of hype at Delaware, but it's a fun name. I saw the name pop up and I initially read it as Marcus Yams, which, the R and the N kind of merged together after about 9 years in the draft room. But it is Marcus Yarns. He 2,344 yards, 23 touchdowns on 342 carries, another 64 catches for 812 yards and 11 touchdowns. So, a really intriguing skill set there.
Yeah, with Marcus Yarns, once again, the running back class this year was so loaded that you would see, top 20s, and you were thinking all these guys could get drafted, right? Marcus Yarns was one of those guys that was kind of in the back end of some top 20 lists that you would see for running back rankings. Like you mentioned, Jeff, super, super productive. And it's kind of interesting that the Saints obviously told you with Devin Neal and now adding Marcus Yarns as UDFA as well, that they were looking for some ready-to-play kind of productive guys in college. So the running back room needed some help.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a year where I could see a UDFA running back making it. That's not true every year.
I'll have to look up his measurables. I don't think he's the biggest guy, and that's probably why he went undrafted.
Yeah, he's 5'11", 193, but he had 4'4", 540. But no, I mean, like in most years, you'd be like, it's going to be a tough nut to crack at running back. I don't know. If Kendre Miller doesn't show it, if he comes into camp, he gets hurt again, I could think you cut him. Like, I don't think he's like year 2 for a 3rd round pick should be guaranteed unless something crazy happens. Year 3, no. Like,
agreed.
Your guaranteed money is gone. This is a new coaching staff. If he doesn't hack it, he's done.
Yeah, we'll see what the attitude is with Kendre Miller because besides the injuries, we knew there was a little bit of a riff with head coach Dennis Allen at the time.
Right. So really, you're in there competing with. Alvin's obviously the guy.
For sure.
Then Devin Neal is a 6th round pick who, I think he's going to be a contributor, but who knows how much. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, so if you're Marcus Yarns, this is I'm not surprised Marcus Yarns was like, okay, yeah, that's a good spot for me. I have a chance to compete for a job there. So anyway, that'll be an interesting one to watch. Linebacker, outside linebacker out of Rutgers, Tyreme Powell, 6'5", 239.
Scarlet Knight pride.
Guys, yeah, New Jersey. So there's going to be a lot of outside linebacker questions. Like, do you have enough? Do you need additional pieces? So it's an interesting one. Dallas Beanham, defensive back out of South Dakota State. 2nd year in a row, they've brought in a UDFA out of South Dakota State. The other one was Isaiah Stallbird, who was a safety linebacker that they kind of converted to safety. So I'm sure they know each other well. Omari Thomas, defensive tackle out of Tennessee, just building up that interior line, 6'4", 325. Elliot Davison, safety out of UTSA, the fighting Marcus Davenports. They also have a tryout guy from UTSA, so they clearly were looking at the Roadrunners.
Beep, beep.
Beep, beep. Jasheen Davis, edge rusher out of Wake Forest, 6'3", 270, kind of outside linebacker. Chris Tyree, running back, wide receiver out of Virginia. I'm kind of interested to see whether they bring him in as a running back or a wide receiver. He did both, and that's going to be, I would expect wide receiver, but he was more productive as a running back in college. He's 5'10", 190, 200, his college stats, 106 catches, 1,081 yards, 7 touchdowns, then 277 rushes, 1,204 yards, 8 touchdowns in 61 games. So very much was a running back wide receiver. Not exactly a Travis Hunter, but you get the idea. Dual threat guy. And then the final one, and maybe the most intriguing one, and I kept him for the end because it's fascinating. James Burnip, punter, Alabama. This dude is 6'6", 236.
Yeah.
Jeez.
If he doesn't make it as a punter, he can be a professional wrestler. Like, what the heck? He's bigger than most of their edge rushers. I mean, at least taller.
Jordan Fiegel, the morning show producer for Tommy Tucker, he texted me when that happened. Roll damn punter, legit one of the best in school history. So, hey, we got one of the Tide's best punters all time.
And I wouldn't say Matthew Hayball was exactly entrenched. You know, like he kind of went down the wire with Lou Hedley. I thought he had some nice moments. He put a ton of punts inside the 20, but, you know, I think I've been asking for years for the NFL to separate punts inside the 20 and punts inside the 10 because there's a big difference between a punt to the 18 and a punt to the 8. And I feel like, you know, I think Matt Hayball led the NFL in punts inside the 20, but so many of them were like to the 15 or the 17. And it's like, I want punts to the 6. I want punts to the 5 because he didn't have that kind of field flipping leg. And the same, he had a better leg than Lou Hedley, but still didn't have like the, you know, you see some of these punters come out and they're hitting rockets. And missiles. Obviously, Darren Rizzi liked him, but there were points last year where I thought Darren Rizzi was gonna throw him out of the bus on the way home. Like you go back to that game in New York, Alvin Kamara had to come up and be like, Darren, calm down. He's the punter. I didn't realize you go off on a punter like that. So no, I mean, I think that's going to be a punter competition. You're going to have a kicker competition. So for the third year in a row, the specialists are going to be fascinating to watch because Charlie Smith's still around.
Right.
So, and he's another guy who's like big dude. And it's just going to be funny. Like Matt Hayball is kind of slight of frame. So you're going to have a kicker who's a little tiny guy facing a kicker who's a big burly guy and Blake Gruber and Charlie Smith. And you're going to have a punter. He's kind of a little slight of frame guy going against another punter who's a big, massive guy, both Australians. So,
6'6" punter, man.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. I don't know if it's going to help you with fakes, but if he has to go out there and make a tackle, I feel pretty good about it.
Shoot, you could do the tush push with him.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe he's the new Taysom Hill. But yeah, 6'6", I saw that and I was like, that can't be right. I thought it was a typo, and I had to double check it. But yeah, 6'6", 236.
Jeff, was Yarns at the Senior Bowl? I know he was a Senior Bowl invite.
I'm not sure.
And he got invited to the Combine, the Senior Bowl, and East-West Shrine Bowl. So all three of the processes pre-draft. So, but
it wouldn't surprise me because half of the players the Saints brought in,
they love the Senior Bowl. Every single year they just adore the Senior Bowl.
But he was at the Senior Bowl.
Okay, yeah, Yarns is a really interesting one for me, guys. I know I talked a little bit about him earlier, but he's kind of like the reason he probably went undrafted is because Delaware, like smaller school, but also not the biggest, bulkiest guy in the world at the running back position, but he's got good hands. Some of the strengths and weaknesses about running inside the tackles is not necessarily one of his strengths, but could be a weapon as like a third down pass catching back potentially. Yeah, that's the one that definitely jumped off the page to me. I know that they also got Neal in the 6th round, but a pair of running backs. And listen, as you mentioned, Jeff, Kendra Miller's job is nowhere near solidified entering his 3rd year. I mean, he is one of the biggest question marks on the roster entering like all the offseason camps.
Right, that you wanted to believe that the running back position was set with a young guy still in the mix here, but we just don't know his availability.
3rd round pick, right? And the thing is, like, and I'm not saying like the Saints aren't high on Devin Neal. I'm sure they are. But the difference between a 6th round pick and a UDFA is not that crazy. Like you'll see 6th round picks not make the roster.
Sure.
Now you'd like them to make the roster, but they're not a lock to make a roster. So if Yarns comes out and is the better player in camp, you could displace that guy. As a team, you always want. There's always going to be an inclination to be like, we were right in the draft. We don't want to immediately come out and say like, well, we made the wrong pick. But a guy like Rick Nelson comes to mind. 4th round pick out of Florida State, didn't even make the roster. So it's like you got to earn it. If you're day 3 picks, have to earn it. It's not guaranteed.
Yeah, I would even say your earlier round picks, even 2nd, 3rd round, you'd have to do something pretty dramatic though to get cut. But nothing's set in stone.
I don't think it's.
You'd still want to keep them around to try and develop.
There's like a 0.3% chance. I can't even think off the top of my head of a day 2 or 1 pick not making the roster. It's almost unheard of.
What was the year that the Saints ended up cutting Pittman and kept around Pierre Thomas? Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was his 2nd year, I think.
Okay, but right, he didn't last long.
Yeah.
If you use a top 100 pick in the draft on a player, you do not want to, like, it had to be some kind of extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah, you'd imagine
maybe
attitude or
legal issues
something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't be any kind of, he stinks on the field. We just completely misguided this guy. You're like, oh, well, you liked him for some reason.
Yeah.
So you're not going to just give up on him right off
the bat.
It was
07. He was Antonio Pittman was a 4th round pick at Ohio State.
4th round. Okay, so it wasn't even that high.
I mean, but 4th round picks, like, it happened. Like, there have been times that 4th round picks don't make the roster. Rick Nelson.
I thought he was the 3rd at least, but that was my fault.
Yeah.
looking at the we've been talking about the UDFA's undrafted free agents for the Saints. We're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll get into some of the Kellen Moore audio talking about our picks. I see that finger up. What you got, Jeff?
It wasn't Rick Nelson. It was it's going to bug. Oh, Rick Leonard. Rick Leonard.
Right.
I kept saying
the
Rick
offensive
Nelson.
lineman from Florida State.
And what kind of draft? What round was he?
He was a 4th rounder. So I'm remembering the right guy. I just called him Nelson instead of Leonard.
I didn't remember his name. I remembered the player.
Yeah, of Florida State.
Rick
I got
something.
that right.
We're doing our WWL Draft Fest Sunday recap show. Now dipping into the day 2 selections. In round 2, we had the quarterback out of Louisville, Tyler Shough, Texas defensive lineman Vernon Broughton, and also Virginia safety Jonas Sanker. And Coach Kellen Moore recapped his day 2 picks.
Starting with Tyler Shough, obviously, we're really, really excited about the opportunity to get Tyler. 32 starts. He faced a lot of adversity through his career, battled through obviously multiple unfortunate injuries that kind of took him through a navigating process. But, as we went through this process, just the more touching points we had with Tyler, the more impressed we got. He was a guy who went through this whole process. I think it's unique when you have a guy who went through the Senior Bowl, did the whole entire combine, went through the visits. Scott went out there and saw him at Louisville. We had a 30 visit with him. Every interaction just, really enforced, the player that he was. And so as you go through this QB process, obviously never easy decisions with that. Just felt like he was a really good quarterback. He was ready. He's prepared. Obviously, he's been through a lot in a good way, and so he's ready to compete in our quarterback room as it plays itself out. Going to Vernon, obviously just a phenomenal kid. Just the energy, the juice that he brings. Our chance to go out there for their pro day, we had a chance to kind of connect with a lot of those Texas guys, and obviously this is our second one that we got. So, he played behind a lot of premier defensive linemen when he was there, and so as a result, he kind of had to be patient. And sometimes you credit these guys that play the patient game, that kind of earn their opportunities on the field. And for him, obviously, it took a little while just as he waited his turn. But Bo and Terry had great relationships with him. Obviously, when you have people in-house who've invested with these guys, who spend a lot of time with them, huge advantage for us. His versatility on the defensive line, his ability to play in a number of positions, I think is going to be great for us. He's got length, he's got quickness, he can anchor, he's got good hands. He'll have a chance definitely to compete with our interior defensive line group. And then Jonas Sanker. This guy's a 3-year starter at Virginia, special teams. He's a captain. He just does everything. And this guy is, for us, we just felt really, really fortunate to be sitting there late in that draft. There's a lot of DBs that were going off the board, and for him to still be there and available to us, we were talking about him for a while, and so just really impressed by this guy. His play style, his instincts, his ability to, his tackling ability is really, really impressive. His ability to play on the back end. We're really fired up to have this guy. He'll obviously provide tremendous depth and add competition to the safety position there. So excited about all three. That was a big-time day for us. We were really excited about it.
Kellen Moore recapping day 2's picks there.
Yeah, one guy we haven't talked about a lot is Jonas Sanker, and I think it's easy to overlook him because he was the final pick on a day where you took a quarterback, and everyone's going to be talking about the quarterback, right?
Yeah, no matter. Even I felt bad. We kind of let off talking about Tyler Shough when he was a second-round pick. It wasn't the first-round pick.
What happens when you draft a quarterback?
Exactly. That QB gets all the attention.
When you draft a quarterback. But, Jonas Sanker is intriguing. I think people are going to really like Jonas when they get to know him, and he's a good example of I go into the draft, I try not to have immediate visceral reactions to any of the picks because, I don't watch a lot of Virginia football. I don't know what I don't know about Jonas Sanker, but then you look at him and you see some of the hits he puts down, and he's a bigger dude. He's strong. Again, he came up playing 8-man football. We asked him, were you recruited? How did you end up at Virginia? And he said, there was a few plays in college or in high school that, they were such big hits and such big highlights that, recruits or scouts started being like, oh, look at this guy. 8-man football? How much time do you think scouts spend looking at 8-man football? Arena football without the arena. But there was one hit in high school. We were like, what are some of your biggest hits? And he immediately was like, oh, that was one my junior year. It was a running back going to the edge. I just took him out of his cleats, sent him back 4 yards. I found the clip. I tweeted the clip if you want to take a look at it.
Let's go.
But, no, I think in a Brandon Staley scheme, he wants to go too deep. He told us that. And I think that's significant. You want too deep at basically every position. And he in Brandon Staley's defense, you have this role called a star. You don't only have a nickel. Like, it's going to be this kind of terminology issue we're going to have over the next few months.
A little bit of a shift, right?
Trying to talk about Brandon Staley's defense and saying, yeah, he's the nickel corner. Well, they don't have a nickel. They have the star, which it's similar, but there are different responsibilities. You play a little more like a linebacker than a corner, and I think he fits perfectly into that. Now, is he going to play that as a rookie? Probably not. I think you're going to try to get Alontae Taylor in that role, and as he told you, I think he expects to be in that role.
Right.
That kind of Jalen Ramsey role with the Rams, or that Derwin James role with the Chargers. And I asked Kellen about that, if he saw him as that type of player, and he said, yeah. I mean, maybe not significantly as a rookie. He's probably going to be a core special teamer. But I think he has that skill set where you can play him a little closer to the line of scrimmage and have him be that rover who can cover, who can hit, who can take on a tight end, who isn't afraid to put his nose in. This is a guy who, as a safety, had more than 200 tackles total over the last 2 years. This is safety. This is college. You don't play that many games. It's a safety. Anyway, I like Jonas. I think people are going to really appreciate his game the way they like, similar to how they like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I think his skill set is similar to that.
Go ahead,
I was going to say, I definitely expect him to be an early, at least standout, contributing on special teams.
Correct.
Let's see, like an initial huge role for him.
Yeah. And CJ was he was a 4th-round pick.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it's what we talked about yesterday, and Steve, you put it perfectly, that, special teamers right off the bat, you're not asking the guy to come in and play a safety role immediately, necessarily, because you have Tyrann Mathieu and you signed Justin Reed to the big contract, right? Where he ends up fitting into Brandon Staley's scheme is going to be an interesting spot for him, but also that he doesn't have to play immediately in that spot.
Got that time to develop.
Kind of learn, develop. You're not forcing him into the role. I know it's a 3rd-round pick, and everyone wants to see those top 100 selections get on the field ASAP, but he is going to get on the field ASAP as a special teamer.
Also, keep in mind, you got to cover kickoffs a lot more now.
Right.
You need guys to do
he's
that.
going to work his way into the Saints defense.
I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention Derek Carr during this show.
Yes.
We talked about the 2nd-round pick for the Saints
Derek Carr.
being Tyler Shough.
That name sounds so familiar.
Yeah,
Oh, this is the car review guy.
that car review guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the YouTube guy.
He's a big fan of Rolls Royces.
Yeah, that's right. He's the YouTube guy. That's right. I get. Yeah,
spending $500K, $500,000 on a car.
Yeah. Got you.
For the everyday man.
My bad. It's just been so long.
The former Raider.
Oh yeah. The former, he was hanging out with a former 49er. That's right. The former Raider and the former 49er.
What personality with
they
those
were in
brothers?
the car together. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
How could I forget?
You got it. Yeah, that's my bad.
Famous YouTuber.
Well, our new head coach, Kellen Moore, he was asked, does the Shough pick say anything about Derek Carr's future with the Saints?
We just felt like it was a really good player. Obviously, we felt good about Tyler through this process, and I don't think there's anything wrong with ever investing in the quarterback room. We feel like there's a lot of depth in there now as we go through this process, and we'll just let it play out.
It's sad. We're yucking it up over here. The situation with Derek Carr is really an unfortunate one that the organization has to deal with, but I know fans have been peeved at the quarterback. They've never really totally embraced him in his role. Coming to New Orleans, it was always looked at another cast-off from the Raiders. We got Dennis Allen, and now they picked up Derek Carr, and now it appears like he's kind of put his nose up to New Orleans and the Who Dat Nation, and a lot of fans. Deuce kind of asked me yesterday at our Rouse's draft coverage if he thinks there's any way that Carr can get back into the good graces of the Who Dat Nation. I don't think so. And the Cajun Cannon Bobby Hebert, though, feels winning solves everything. And I just don't think that's even the case with Carr.
Yeah, I think the Saints are being very strategic in how they're choosing to not talk about this.
Just avoid it.
And Derek Carr also hasn't talked about it as well. I think they're just trying to keep their options open, right? I don't think they're trying to alienate anyone any more than they have to be. I think they're trying to figure out if he's going to have surgery or not. And once that decision is made, then you can go from there. David Carr, the former 49er who, we were joking about, he did say that, they're still making that decision. He thinks the injury occurred the same time he broke his hand against the Giants.
And I know you guys feel this too, but it's like, what's the wait? What are we waiting on here with the surgery? That, I'm going to have it, so he's going to miss the entire year? Why isn't this done already?
He doesn't want to have surgery. He wants to rehab without surgery. And well, I mean, that's the idea. And so I think you're trying to figure that out. And once you figure that out, then you can make comments and decisions. And I think Tyler Shough is going to be your starting quarterback week 1 of the 2025 season.
Hey-o!
But they're not going to alienate this situation any more than they need to, and that's why you see guys playing coy.
It's just ugly.
Jeff coming off the top ropes with that selection.
I mean, I don't think it's is that a bold take?
No, Bobby said the same thing.
I mean,
when it happened,
you have the guy you took at 40 competing with the guy who was your 5th round pick last year on a different coaching staff. And Rattler's going to compete.
Right.
I think when people see Shough out there, they're going to be like, okay, he's the starter.
Just hearing Kellen gush about him, it's his guy. And you picked him 40th overall. I think I agree with you, Jeff. Especially, I know Loomis made the comments, if Carr's healthy, he's the starting quarterback.
Yeah, if.
Yeah, it's a big if. It's going to be
if I had Jessica Alba's phone number.
Exactly. It's almost certainly going to
I
be.
can send that to you.
Oh, thanks.
And we are back. One more segment on this NFL Draft Recap edition of Inside Black and Gold, brought to you by WWL Radio. I'm Jeff Nowak and Steve Geller, Charlie Long. This final segment, we break down who are some of our other favorite draft classes. Who do we think stole some players? Who do we think kind of fell flat a little bit? All that good stuff. Here you go.
9 selections we've been going through, and also it is official now. The Saints have put out their undrafted free agent class, which we had talked about earlier.
Names,
There's no new additions to that list they put out, right, Jeff?
11
so
names.
Yeah.
The ones we went through all earlier in the show. Those are all there, yep.
So we'll get in more of this hour into kind of thoughts around the NFL, since we've been talking about the Saints the first 2 hours. And just curious from what you guys saw and think right off the bat, did any people or teams, I guess should say, stand out in this draft as really hitting that home run for their squads?
Well, anytime you can get a first-round talent at number 59, you win the draft, in my opinion. And so, and the Ravens, this is what I said in the first hour. How do good teams stay good?
Right.
They do the vetting on a player that's falling in the draft, feel good about it, and land a guy like Mike Green. I mean, he's a first-round pick. No question. And I think a lot of times what happens with players like that is, yes, there are some legitimate off-the-field concerns, but, not necessarily, okay, we can't draft this guy. We don't feel comfortable drafting this guy because there are question marks. And when you're drafting a player, the way you describe it, however you describe it, you're marrying that player. You don't marry someone that you're not sure about. You marry someone that you're in love with. Or maybe you marry someone for a green card, but that doesn't fit into the analogy. Anyway, so a lot of teams may have had concerns about it, so he fell, and he fell, and he fell, and he fell. But the Ravens were a team that did all the vetting. They turned over all the rocks. They talked to the people they needed to talk to, and they felt good about it. And so they get the, NCAA leader in sacks and a guy that, showed up at the Senior Bowl, blew up 2 first-round offensive tackles, and then said, I'm good. I'm leaving on a high note like George Costanza. And so the Ravens, a team that traditionally is this elite defensive group, ends up with Mike Green. And I think the rest of their draft class was solid as well. So that would be mine. That's the steal of the draft. In 2-3 years, we're going to be looking back and saying, how the heck did Mike Green get to the second round? And it'll be because, it wasn't until the Ravens that the team felt comfortable with it.
Right.
Guys, I'm going to go with a couple for ones that I like, and then I think this will kind of lead into the talk about Shedeur. Right. The Browns draft was weird.
But Mel Kiper Jr. gave him an A+. They got Shedeur, baby.
Of course he did.
Weird. In what way? How could you possibly?
The Browns?
You draft 2 quarterbacks. You draft 2 running backs. You don't address much else. You trade off of Travis Hunter.
Yeah, you trade to not take a generational player.
Yeah, and you get it was a very strange draft
A+, baby,
for them. But I want to actually address a couple. Unfortunately, and I guess it also kind of depends on what you think of Ted McMillan. The Panthers kind of killed it in this draft. Dan Morgan, I think, did a really, really good job. And Ted was...
They were very active.
Yeah, Ted was the first, I think, big surprise in the top 10. All those players, you kind of expected... It was a gigantic smokescreen because it caught everybody that they were going to take Jalen Walker or take a defensive lineman in the first round. Instead, they take Ted and get Bryce, the big body target, with pick number 8 overall. But then they go defensive line back-to-back picks with Nick Scorton and then Princely Umanmielen, 2 SEC edge rushers.
I did like Etienne as well.
Etienne in the 4th round, as you were mentioning. Lathan Ransom, the safety from Ohio State, in the 4th round as well. So 2 4th-round picks, 2 5th-round picks. Cam Jackson, defensive tackle from Florida, and Mitchell Evans, the tight end from Notre Dame, and then 6th round, Jimmy Horn. I think that is a very good draft class, unfortunately, in the NFC South. Another one that I really liked, and this is just kind of personal, I loved at least the start of the Lions draft, getting Tyleik Williams in the 1st round, who is just a brick wall. And then in the 2nd round, doubling down on just the beef and getting Tate Ratledge, the interior offensive lineman from Georgia, Isaac Tesla in the 3rd round. Miles Frazier, who I thought could have been a 4th-round pick or maybe even a 3rd-round pick. I think it was like number 86 on Mike D's big board. Falls into day 3 and then falls all the way into the 5th round. I think they potentially got a starting guard in the 5th round. That's really good as well. But just talking about like the Dan Campbell mentality of winning up front, and you get 3 quality linemen and a potential high upside swing with Isaac Tesla, the wide receiver in the 3rd round.
I'll give you one more. I thought the Seahawks had a sneaky good draft. And, not a lot of people are talking about it because they didn't have, they went with a guard in the 1st round, Grease Abel, but I think he's the best interior lineman, can kick out to tackle. And then they probably got the best athlete in the draft, Nick Amanwari. He probably should have been a 1st-round pick. Positional value, right? Some question marks. Best athlete in the draft, no question. They got him in the 2nd round. Then Elijah Arroyo.
That was one I had on my Saints wish
out of
list.
Miami, right? So, fantastic tight end out of Miami. And then Jalen Milroe, like a guy that I think in Clint Kubiak's offense can be really good. And then it's just a lot of really, really intriguing options. Torrey Horton out of Colorado State, I think, is a sneaky good pick. And so, the Seahawks, a team that has their quarterback, has like a developmental quarterback, builds a really, really good team, I think.
Curious to see, how Clint Kubiak now fares over with the Seahawks after just 1 year here in New Orleans.
Yeah, it'll be funny if his offense finally clicks. I don't know. This might be his last shot. If he flames out there, it's going to be tough. What you'll say is this is his first chance to be an offensive coordinator on a staff that is not, kind of marked for slaughter. Like he was the offensive coordinator on Mike Zimmer's staff, and it was like, yeah, okay, well, we'll give you this very short leash, and then if not, send you into the sun. Same thing happened. So
one last thing before we get into the Browns. I liked the Cardinals' first 3 picks. Yeah. I don't know too much about their day 3 selections. Walter Nolan in the 1st round. Listen, if that kid hits, he's going to be a terror on the interior defensive line for years to come. He needs to be in the kind of right frame of mind, is kind of what Mike and I were talking about with him, but he's got all the talent in the world to be a legit NFL stud for a long time. 2nd round, you get one of the best value picks in the entire draft. If he's healthy, Will Johnson at pick 47.
Yep.
Unbelievable that he fell out of the 1st round and he fell into the middle of the 2nd round. The Cardinals, you could have told me that entering the draft, Will Johnson was their 1st round pick. I would have believed you. They got him in the 2nd round and got Walter Nolan. And then they got Jordan Birch, an edge rusher that we talked with Pete Jenkins about. Pete worked with them. He's a South Carolina guy. They got him in the 3rd round. I love those the first 3 picks for the Cardinals for their defense. I think they definitely bolstered that. And now let's dive into...
Wait. One more. Can I give you one more?
Okay, go ahead.
Like super value draft, the Giants.
The Giants did what they were supposed to. It felt with Abdul Carter specifically.
Yeah, so Abdul Carter, that's the right pick. I think they were trying to get a trade, but that's the right pick. I think he's the best. You can say him or Travis Hunter. Some people had Abdul at the top. Some people had Travis Hunter at the top. Elite edge rusher.
Yeah.
Then they still get their quarterback in Jackson Dart. They trade in. They don't give up a ton.
Yeah, 2 third-round picks.
Darius Alexander out of Toledo. I could take or leave that. But then
he's an NFL-ready defensive tackle. He's an older prospect. I think he's 25, 26.
Oh, so old.
But then,
he's a guy that and I think he was at the Senior Bowl, huh, Jeff? Darius Alexander?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think he was one of those guys that really made a lot of money in the pre-draft process that someone kind of from a smaller school but just went and terrorized offensive linemen at the pre-draft process events. Yeah, I got there. I like that pick too.
But then Cam Scadaboo, 4th round.
Sadly love that pick for the Giants.
Yeah, and they needed a running back. They got a running back. And then Marcus Embo, who I think was one of the top interior linemen.
It's Bo.
Embo, yeah, right. So, you got, I don't know, that's what, 5 starters? That's a pretty good haul.
Nice pieces, right.
No, it's a good draft for Joe Shane.
I'll throw one in, too, for me. I like the New England Patriots. Thought they did a lot around to help Drake May beef up that offense for them. Will Campbell, LSU guy, their 4th overall pick. Trayvon Henderson, the running back out of Ohio State in the 2nd round, and their 2 third-round picks. wide receiver Kyle Williams from Washington State, and then the Georgia center Jared Wilson there. Like the focus to surround Drake May to have success as much as possible, because what we saw from him, he definitely looks like a star rising.
And Trevion Henderson, as much of a home run play waiting to happen as he is when he has the ball in his hands, he's one of the better pass protecting running backs in this class.
Yeah.
He's an instant 3-down back and someone that, if you try to blitz Drake May, he's going to take your head off. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the Patriots had a good draft.
Jeff, looking at your question, I know it was about the second round and quarterbacks, where the Saints ended up taking theirs and Louisville's Tyler Shough. The only time they've taken a quarterback in team history in round 2.
Yeah, so, I did want to go through like the whole list of second round picks. We have time for that?
Yeah, we could do this.
All right, so give me thumbs up, thumbs down. So obviously, Tyler Shough, pick 40. None in 2024. In 2023, Will Levis, which
thumbs down.
Yeah, I mean, it's still got time. You're talking about year 3.
We should have known when to put in mayonnaise and coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, eating bananas with the peel on, stuff like that. 2021, Kyle Trask.
Thumbs down.
Yeah. He was a 64th pick, so pretty late in the second round. Jalen Hurts of the Eagles.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, he's been to 2 Super Bowls, got a ring already, right?
I think he's pretty good. Drew Lock of Broncos in 2019.
Boo.
Thumbs down.
2018, there were none. Deshaun Kaiser to the Browns in 2017.
That's the Browns, so thumbs down.
Christian Hackenberg to the Jets in 2016.
Oh, my goodness. Thumbs
Terrible.
down.
Now, this is an interesting one. 2014. Derek Carr to the Raiders. The funny, it's like people are going to want to say thumbs down.
The famous YouTuber?
The famous YouTuber, Derek Carr.
Homegrown network.
A homegrown network. People are going to want to say Derek Carr, but like, we're talking about a second-round pick. Derek Carr's career is a highly successful second-round pick. So,
I plead the fifth.
Yeah, I mean, like, we don't like Derek Carr right now, but like, if you're talking about total career second-round pick, when you think of like, Christian Hackenberg, Deshaun Kaiser, okay, thumbs up. Jimmy Garoppolo is an interesting one. Because second-round pick, he was a 62nd pick, went to the Patriots. Yeah. He started a couple games in the year that Tom Brady got suspended. Patriots ended up trading him to the 49ers, ended up going to the Raiders. So a couple Raiders quarterbacks there. He was kind of right in the middle.
Right.
Brock Osweiler in 2012.
Thumbs down.
Man.
And then a couple others. Really interesting in 2011. Andy Dalton at 35.
Thumbs up.
I got to give a thumbs up for Andy, man.
Oh, you're going to give Andy a thumbs up? You're not going to
Sure.
give Derek a thumbs up? They had the exact same career. Anyway, Colin Kaepernick to the 49ers in 36. He went to the Super Bowl. Right there. I think he's in the middle. And here's the thing, like, because we're comparing him to Jimmy Clausen in 2010, the guy who
No
Mel
Kiper's
Kiper
guy.
said he was going to retire if he wasn't any good.
You're making me feel bad now, Jeff, with this history of second-round quarterbacks.
Well, but that's what I
Not
mean.
very
It's hit or miss.
illustrious.
It's hit or miss. That's my point.
There's been a lot of
There's a lot of
misses,
misses.
though. Right.
Well, right, but it's hit or miss. It's probably 50-50. That's
Where's the good 50? Let's come on.
what are you talking about?
Like
I know Jalen Hurts so far is the only one I've really liked.
Jalen Hurts and okay,
Andy
again,
Dalton,
Derek Carr's career. He's played 10 years. He's like 20th all time in passing yards.
We're like 3.5.
Andy
so
Dalton
far.
again. So you're talking about, and I'm not saying there's better ones. There's better ones.
I know. I've been waiting for the big one.
2008, Brian
Jalen was the
Brahman,
big
Chad
one.
Henne. No. 2007, Kevin Cobb, John Beck, Drew Stanton.
Dear
no.
Lord.
This
2006, Kellen Clemens and Tavares Jackson.
You're
Oh,
not
my
making me
goodness.
feel good here, Nowak.
Now you went 4 years without a single one. 2005, 2004, 2003, 2002, 0. 2001, Drew Brees.
There you go.
Oh,
pretty
the
good.
light and the
But
shines down
the
from the
caveat
heavens.
with Drew Brees is that he was the 31st overall pick. If it happened today, he would have been a
First
first-round
round.
pick. Then Quincy Harder to the Cowboys. Marcus Tuiasosopo. So, I mean, like,
Good pronunciation, sir.
thank you. He went to the Raiders. So, I mean, like, yeah, that's the thing. That's why taking a quarterback in the second round is it's a sketchy proposition. But, there are some long-term quality quarterbacks on that list. There are some guys who are like, wow, I forgot about them. There were some guys that started games. Jimmy Garoppolo weren't great. There were some guys who got decent contracts. So, I mean, that's where you are. You're talking about a kind of a 50-50 proposition.
We're going to take a break here.
I'm sorry. I missed one.
Okay, go ahead. Hit
Geno
me.
Smith.
Okay.
Geno's all right. I'll give him a thumbs
That's
up
like
on that one.
the sixth good
That
name
was
in the
2013.
last
At
20
least we
years.
ended on a
Well,
high
there's
note,
like
I'll
20
say.
names on here. 10 of them probably had long-term careers.
Back here as we get to wrap up our Draft Fest Sunday recap show. Steve Geller, Charlie Long, Jeff Nowak, also Cullen Steele, keeping us all in line behind the board right now. Guys, the NFL draft over. We survived, and the Saints come out of it with 9 selections plus their UDFA undrafted free agent classes also set, and look forward to now rookie minicamp. We'll get to, at least to talk more to these guys and see how things went in. It's a whole new regime, and it's like you feel this overwhelming breath of fresh air, I guess you could say, between the coaches and a ton of new players.
Yeah. I hope that as we get forward in this process, the excitement is going to outweigh complaining about everything, because I'm so tired of complaining about everything, man. I want to be excited about a young quarterback, and I don't care if he's 25. He's a fresh NFL quarterback.
Old.
It's a new era. It's a new head coach. It's a whole new group of players, man. He brought in 9 players for a reason. You can call him Unk if you want. I'm okay with that. Unk Shuck. Shunk. Anyway, I'm excited about it. And, this season might not be great, but I think you're building towards something. And that's where I see this draft class, like you added, a ton of young players. Like, these are players who should be a core of your group, leaders of your team in 5-6 years, right? So I'm excited about it. And I'm looking forward to rookie minicamp, looking forward to seeing these guys out there, looking forward to what this team looks like.
9 picks, 9 positions as well. I think that's pretty interesting considering what we were just talking about with the Browns taking 2 quarterbacks and 2 running backs. You get offensive tackle, quarterback, defensive tackle, safety, linebacker, cornerback, running back, tight end, defensive end.
Yeah, there was a run there where it was 4 or 5 straight defensive picks?
4 straight defensive
picks.
But that's kind of my point, is that you addressed all these different holes. Now, the one thing that they didn't really address, and Mickey talked about it last night, wide receiver. Yep. Exactly. But the way, I guess, the board fell, they were never really in position to get a receiver. The other thing is, what did this receiver room need? It needed the big body guy. This draft didn't have many of them. It was Tet McMillan, who went number 8 right before the Saints picked at 9. And then Jaden Higgins from Iowa State, who went with the second pick of the second round. He went 34th overall, basically 6 picks before you. And if you were committed to drafting Tyler Shough with your second round pick, he wasn't really in the conversation anyways. So, yes, they still needed a big body receiver, but you weren't really finding that in this draft class. It was a lot more of slot kind of speedy guys than the traditional big X.
Yeah, I think is that Keenan Allen's music I hear? I think I hear Keenan Allen's music. That's weird.
Yeah, well, I guess if you're if you're the Bucs, you can just keep running out all these slot guys and just have them tear up every opposing defense they go up against. Emeka Egbuka is going to be so good, man. I'm not looking forward to that at all.
Wait, what are you talking about? I'm talking about Keenan Allen, the receiver that's a free agent that I think the Saints are going to sign. That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, I see. I thought you were talking about the style of player.
No.
I was thinking, along your lines, Jeff, I went to start looking at those free agent wide receivers. Also a guy like Amari Cooper out there as well. But I'm curious to see, I do think they're going to have to go that route with the veteran free agent because of, you didn't get the young guy in this draft, and that bigger type body you do need, I feel, in this offense.
Yeah, and you're in that range. You're not going to ruin a comp pick. A 1-year deal is not going to kill you. And I think you do need one kind of veteran option that is beyond Cedric Wilson, Brandon Cooks, but we'll see. All right, that's going to do it for this long WWL Radio-fueled edition of Inside Black and Gold. It's going to wrap it up for myself, Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller, along with Charlie Long. Cullen Steele also produced the episode. Got to give him some props. Did a great job. Thanks to Charlie Long for coming on. Always appreciate having him on the show, and I appreciate you for listening. It's going to be a lot to talk about, a 9-man draft class. We're only scratching the surface in terms of it's only been 24 hours. Haven't been able to go through all the tape I want to go through, break down some of the, especially the later round prospects who haven't watched nearly as much of, but it's going to be fun. We're also going to have a rookie minicamp coming up in May, so there will be some opportunities to chat with some of these players, learn a little bit more about each of them, and get excited. I think getting excited for this upcoming season is the correct approach. If you want to be frustrated about Mickey Loomis, the decision-making, all that, I get it. But to me, this is a new head coaching era. Got a new quarterback, got a lot of new players, and I'm looking forward to watching them get out there. So, who dat? Go Saints. As always, thanks everyone for listening. If you haven't subscribed yet, please remember to do that. Check us out on YouTube at WWL Sports if you're not watching there already. And until the next time, who dat? Go Saints. Easy, y'all. A peace.